Outputting our coverage. It's what we do.
That's all we do every Thursday
At 5:30.
College football.
Mountain West Conference.
Doesn't matter.
SEC
Is all that matters.
Nick Saban
Is crazy.
Yeah.
And that's all.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome into another exciting edition of the Outputting Our Coverage show. David, once again, lots to talk about this week. We've had some probably enough games now to kind of start to determine a pecking order of where teams are within the SEC and abroad. We'll talk about that a little bit as we go on in the show here. Certainly we'll recap the Alabama-Texas A&M matchup that, to my eyes, lived up to the hype it received.
I think it was an instant classic.
Yeah, certainly a great game there. Got a big matchup between Auburn and LSU to preview this week as well. So,
a good game with Auburn last week, too.
Yeah, so lots to talk about on the Outputting Our Coverage show. Let's start, as we always do, with some of the the headlines and whatnot around the country this week. Last week, the big question marks were surrounding Texas and USC. Of course, Texas lost to Ole Miss. Certainly does not help Mac Brown's case.
And it wasn't close either.
No, I mean, it's kind of a blowout there. So certainly rumors starting to swirl about Texas. David, an article came out this afternoon. I think you can probably classify this one in the blowing things out of proportion category. However, article came out that after the BCS championship last year, at least one, maybe two Texas regents talked to Nick Saban's lawyer, or not his lawyer, his agent, the famous Jimmy Sexton.
Right.
Anything more than a copious attempt for screen views by internet web organizations?
No, I don't think so, because if you get in depth and read the article, they approached his agent. Then a couple days later, they approached Mac Brown and asked him if he wants to retire. This was all in the case if Mac Brown wanted to retire.
Right.
Mac Brown says he doesn't. It was immediately dropped.
Of course, Mac Brown may be forced to retire now.
I think he will be. But
the situation has changed a little bit, and we'll certainly talk about that more as the season goes on. USC managed to beat Boston College. Lane Kiffin kind of survives to fight another week, but certainly he's not off the hook yet there either. The big news this week, Lane Kiffin and Mac Brown very thankful for Bo Pelini.
Oh, definitely. Golly. Have you listened to the audio clip?
I did. It was, you can't really explain that one away. It is what it is.
No, and he's done you got to give him credit. He's done a good job trying to explain it all.
Well, basically, if you're not familiar with what happened, Bo Pelini, the very fiery head coach, very emotional head coach of Nebraska.
Who I'm very upset with, by the way. We'll get to that in a second.
The former defensive coordinator for LSU for a while before he went to Nebraska. Basically, I guess it was last year after a hard-fought victory against Ohio State, maybe?
It was Ohio State.
It must have been 2 years ago, if that were the case. He was about to go on his post-game radio show, as these coaches tend to do, and obviously frustrated about some things.
The crowd booed him at halftime?
Yeah, he's basically, used some expletives and said, you know what, crowd, forget you guys. Nebraska wouldn't be able to survive without me, which is false. And
talking about he was going to leave pretty soon after that?
Yeah, and I've had chances to go other places, which he's still saying now. So you have that going on. Then you also have him disagreeing with comments by arguably Nebraska's most famous player, Tommy Frazier.
Yeah.
Tommy Frazier kind of making some comments saying that, defensively, Nebraska not where they need to be, and Bo Pelini said something to the effect of, well, if that's how Tommy Frazier feels, then we don't need him. Yeah, it turns out Nebraska fans didn't really agree with that sentiment.
I don't think they agreed with anything he said in that rant.
Unsurprisingly, so kind of interesting times. It seems like he's kind of gotten a vote of not confidence, but a vote of status quo, at least from the administration there in Nebraska, but certainly not helping his case.
I think more than anything, this just proves that in today's day and age of technology, everything you say is being recorded.
Every mic is a hot mic, David.
That's right.
Every mic is a hot mic.
Every phone is a hot mic at this point.
You never know. You got to be careful. Nebraska, of course, lost to UCLA this past weekend. They seem to have it in hand. I predicted that one, of course.
They had an 18-point lead. I turned the TV off.
They blew that one. They blew it for sure. So you got that going. Nebraska not performing real well. You got a coach who's kind of shooting himself in the foot. If you had to put a percentage on Bo Pelini surviving after this year, what would it be right now?
Yeah, I think he's got to win the Big Ten.
Really?
Yeah. I think they're
fed up, huh?
They're frustrated with the mediocrity. I think they were already frustrated. This just kind of gives them another reason to stack on the pile. I think he's got to win the Big Ten to stay around.
All right, so let's review. At the end of this year, there's a very real possibility you could have USC, Texas, Nebraska. All those jobs may be open. There may be more to come.
I think so, yeah. I think we're going to have a lot of turmoil in the offseason.
Could be a crazy one coming up here. Another piece of big news that you called me about yesterday. Nobody saw this one coming. Trent Richardson traded from the Browns to the Colts.
And what did they get? A first-round pick. That's
Yeah.
all it took was a first-round pick.
See, the most interesting tweet I saw about this was, and I had to look it up to see what it meant, but somebody said, I wasn't aware that Rachel Phelps had bought the Browns. And I was like, who's Rachel Phelps? So I looked it up. Turns out she's the crazy owner lady from the movie Major League.
That's awesome.
So I guess she chose the third string guy to be the starting quarterback. Trading Trent Richardson away.
That's awesome.
Obviously, they're trying to move the team to Miami.
Went and got Willis McGahee, who's
Yeah.
32 and fragile.
Yeah. Something I was not aware of. Apparently, Jason Campbell was the second string
For the
there.
whole offseason.
Yeah,
And then just got skipped. Yeah.
So it's interesting there. But yeah, nobody saw that coming. Nobody luckier or nobody coming out of this better than Trent Richardson.
No, definitely. He was being underutilized. You have a top 3 pick a year ago at running back. You have a third-round quarterback who a lot of people thought it was a reach when you got him in the third, and your offensive coordinator throws 59 times a game. Just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So if you look at Indy, they're really set up. I mean, you've got Andrew Luck at quarterback, Trent Richardson at running back, Reggie Wayne's a little old at wide receiver, but then you've got T.Y. Hilton on the outside who's very dynamic, very young. They're set up on offense for a while now.
Yeah, certainly trying to reclaim those glory days of past years here. So don't think anybody saw that one coming. David, at this point, I'm just waiting to see what coach screws up big time this coming week.
It really could be anyway. Let's talk about big time screw ups because I've got another bone to pick on a pick in our pick 10 this week. Arizona State and Wisconsin. Did you watch that game?
Yeah, this was the other thing I wanted to talk about, David. The massive display of refereeing ineptitude.
It was. Wisconsin had a good handle on the game. They let the Sun Devils sneak around and stay competitive. Sun Devils go up late in the game. Wisconsin establishes a drive, is very deep in Arizona State territory. They run a play, and you would think they would just spike the ball. But instead, the quarterback runs to the middle of the field, actually places the ball down, which is not something I think I've seen ever. Typically, you see him take a knee, which was the mistake, and I think that's what started the confusion. So
there was you can argue based on things I've seen, maybe he did actually take a knee. He at least kind of showed an intent to take a knee.
He did. Well, the intent was to get back on the line and spike the ball, but the referees were very non-committal in any of the calls, so all the Wisconsin players are looking back for the referees' consent on what the play was. All this time, the clock's still running. Wisconsin has no timeouts.
Right, and Arizona State guys are on top of the ball.
That's right. They're ready. And by the time the quarterback gets back, time expires, and Arizona State goes nuts.
That's it. That to me is, you talk about like the fifth down play in that game, but this is 10 times worse than that. I mean, Wisconsin literally got screwed out of that game. They would have won it.
And they're Pac-12 officials anyway.
Yeah. So. I mean, that's some pretty bad stuff. I mean, we've complained about SEC referees here and there, but I've never seen anything quite like that before.
And I need as many wins as I can get in this pick'em.
Yeah. Let's talk about the pick'em real quick. Just because I like to talk about it as much as we possibly can for right now. David, what do the standings look like at this point?
You are in a 7-way tie for first.
Wait, what was that last word you said?
7-way tie?
For first?
For first, right.
For first?
Yes.
Yeah.
At 22-8, we've got Wooly Moobs Saban runs like a girl. At least that's what it is this week. Grizzly McDaddy, Andy, Big Dog, and Antika.
Okay.
All at 22-8. We have a sole number 2 or /8 in boobs.
Yeah.
So I think we'll, just because of the name, that's number 2.
Yeah. Sure.
And then we have another tie right here for 9th. I think it's about 5 players at 20 and 10. So all very close within 2 games. And then I am at 17 and 13. So I am 5 games out. Technically, I am the lowest one who has picked in all the weeks. Max 2011 is at 13 and 17, but he missed a whole week, and I'm only at 4 on him. Jack 9155 also at 13 and 17, missed a whole week.
Maybe Doo-Doo River Craycraft needs to change his name in the pick'em.
I don't know. We've discussed this before. If it's winning the name, or if I have to trade being bad at pick'em for fantasy prowess, I will trade that in a heartbeat.
That is true. I did learn the identity of Rumpelfugly this weekend.
Who is Rumpelfugly?
It is actually a guy, Kyle, that I went to school with.
Okay.
Had no idea that he was part of the pick'em. Saw him while I was down at Auburn this weekend. One thing led to another. We talked about the pick'em, and bam, there we go.
Nice.
Just crazy. The reach of this show, David.
It's impressive.
It's incredible.
I've got to say, Antika has shown some pretty good staying power. She was 10-0 in week number 1. Thought we might have had a slip in week 2, but she's right up there.
Yeah, I mean, she's really turned herself into a perennial contender.
I'm telling you,
it's really big.
She did really well last year, but caught onto the pole a little late, and so was at a disadvantage there. But you got to watch out for Antika.
Lots going on with the pick'em there. Continue getting those picks in. Some tough games this week, guys.
Oh man,
choose wisely.
Yeah, we can talk. We might have some time to talk about that later in the show.
Speaking of later in the show, we're going to take a real quick break here. On the other side, let's talk Texas A&M, Alabama, David.
All right.
Let's do it. We'll
I'm
be
ready.
right back here on the other side of Outputting Our Coverage.
It's time for SEC Preview. SEC Big 10, Big 12, 12 can't count. SEC College Football Robber Barons. SEC, yeah, they're big, they're fast, they're strong. And Missouri and Texas A&M as well. Yeah, SEC Preview. Here we go.
All right, welcome back to the Outputting Our Coverage show. David, as we said, I think we might have undersold the Texas A&M Alabama game a little bit. We kind of thought that Johnny Manziel, with all of the distractions going on, probably wouldn't play very well. Maybe Texas A&M wouldn't be up to the challenge. I'm ready to admit I was wrong. I think Johnny Manziel absolutely played lights out. Still wasn't quite enough, but a fantastic game.
I've got to say it was a really good game to watch. Great game to watch. Manziel played out of his mind, had some great statistics. Evans on the corner, the wide receiver, was also amazing. Yeah. However, I will say that from the middle of quarter 1 to the end of quarter 3, it was not a close game.
No, I mean, really, Johnny Manziel throws that pick in the end zone, the game changes at that point. It is very different. The interesting thing to note out of this is really Alabama didn't have an answer for Johnny Manziel. They were not last year's game, it seemed like they were able to shut him down after the first quarter or so, and maybe they were able to do that for a little while, but at the end, not really.
Can I say something controversial? Because I don't think anyone has said. I've listened to a lot of sports radio about the game, and I don't think anybody said. I don't think Johnny Manziel was the best player on the field for Texas A&M. I really think that he got lucky and benefited more from Mike Evans and the wide receiver. I think he was the best player on the field.
I would agree with that.
Manziel several times just threw prayers up deep, knowing that his guy could go up and get it. And I think if he has a shorter or a different wide receiver and he throws those same passes, most of them are incomplete passes.
Sure. No, I would wholeheartedly agree with that. I think the question becomes moving forward, is this more related to, Johnny Manziel and, his wide receivers, or is it more, something that Alabama's going to have to look out for in the future if they're facing a similar quarterback?
Well, let's think about that again, and I'm going to go back to the wide receiver on this one. What team do they face again with a big physical wide receiver?
There really isn't one.
I mean, maybe LSU. They've got a couple of people with
LSU,
size on the
I
corner.
think you could argue that maybe some of their guys might be close. I don't think they're quite the same level, though.
No, I agree with you there. Ole Miss is predicated more on speed than size. I really think Alabama's schedule is going to help them out in this.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, pretty much after this game, you got to look hard to find a potential game that Alabama could lose until the championship game. I think LSU is probably the best shot. However, LSU plays at Alabama.
Right.
So that kind of takes that away.
And it's a completely different style.
Right. So at this point, really your toughest games, I would think, coming up are probably Georgia in the championship. That'll probably be a good test. But
definitely.
Really, the question I think that would kind of be in everybody's mind right now is if Alabama had some struggles with the Texas A&M offense.
What happens when they hit Oregon?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
I think it's a different offense.
It is.
And here to me is the biggest difference. Alabama broke down and A&M had the best success when the play did not go as planned. When there was creativity and just pure athleticism and talent, Texas A&M won all of those battles. Oregon is more of a structured style.
Sure.
I mean, they like quick-hitting plays. It's all organized and structured. I think they'd have a little more success in handling that. But I've got to say, the pace tired Alabama out.
Yeah.
You could tell it really affected them.
Well, and here's the other question. Could you make an argument that Oregon's defense is better than Texas A&M's?
Oh, definitely. Texas A&M's front seven is weak. I mean, I don't think that would be an SEC front seven if you looked at it.
And then the question becomes, could a defense like Oregon shut down a team like Alabama enough to make it interesting?
And definitely, and especially as many points as they're going to... You cannot fully stop a team like Oregon. They're going to score points. You have to hope that you can score enough points on their defense. And I think Oregon would give Alabama a real test. That's the national championship everybody wants to see.
Sure.
Because I think Alabama is weaker on defense than they have been in probably 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, I think that'll be an interesting matchup. Of course, to all the national sports writers who are saying that they would love to see Oregon match up against an SEC powerhouse, I would like to remind them that did in fact take place in 2010, and we saw what happened. However, we'll move past that, I guess.
All right.
Alabama has Colorado State this weekend. Certainly don't see any issues there. More of a slap on the rear to former offensive coordinator Jim McElwain, who's the head coach at Colorado State now.
I think the only thing you might see would be a disappointment if Alabama comes out sluggish. Really, I wouldn't be surprised if they were tuckered out from the A&M game and got off to a slow start and ended up only winning by 14 or 21. Yeah, I think you'd see some people complaining about that.
It may be a little wet, too, I think. Some rain in the forecast for this weekend, so that would probably slow things down a little bit, but certainly no real issues there.
I wouldn't think so.
Let's move on. Let's talk about Auburn, Mississippi State. A quick recap there. This game didn't unfold quite like I thought it would. I really thought Auburn was going to be able to take care of business a little bit easier. To be honest with you, offensively, Auburn was very, very sluggish for most of this game.
Definitely.
Other than the first half of the first quarter and the last half of the last quarter.
Right.
Auburn really couldn't get anything going offensively, and I think part of that was due to maybe a little bit underrated front seven for Mississippi State.
I think a big-time underrated front seven for Mississippi State.
Yeah.
They have stuffed everybody that they've played against so far, and they don't get the credit they deserve for that.
Yeah, I mean, they were able to hold a pretty high-powered offense in Oklahoma State to relatively few points, so maybe you don't feel quite as bad about that, but really the thing that's concerning to me, the running game just never quite got going for Auburn in this game. And you ended up with kind of a mixture of some screen passes and some long passes that Nick Marshall seemed to overthrow for most of the game. I was sitting there thinking, while I was watching the game, why don't we try some intermediate passes?
Right.
That seems like it might be a good idea. And lo and behold, the last series of the game, Nick Marshall, I mean, you've seen it now, came in, led 97 yards down the field, however long it was, to score through some intermediate passes. They seem to work pretty well. It's just one of those things where, you don't want to second guess the coaches and, ask what they're doing, but when you keep trying things and they're not working on offense, you got to try something
else. Now, one of the things Auburn fans ought to be pretty happy about is every game they've played has been a very interesting game. It's been a great game to watch.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's certainly, I'll put it this way. Well, I don't want to make comparisons between this team and 2010, the stadium has not felt like that since
Right.
2010. At the end of that game, coming back for a big win, the level of excitement is kind of back now. I think that's a big confidence boost for the players. Another good thing, defensively, Auburn seems to have improved in the second half of each game. They've not allowed a touchdown in the fourth quarter yet.
That's awesome.
So that's certainly something good.
And you did it against what, in my opinion, is the best quarterback option Mississippi State has.
Yeah, no, I think he was certainly a better option than Tyler Russell, and that's a concern for Auburn, is containing quarterbacks, especially on third down. They've had so much trouble getting
That's
off
been
the
the
field
magical down
on
yeah.
third down for the past couple of years. I mean, really, that's been an issue for a while. Looking forward to LSU this weekend. A good thing for Auburn, defensive end D. Ford, as well as linebacker / hybrid Justin Garrett are both back now. I think those are critical additions to that defense.
Oh, definitely.
You finally have a bona fide pass rusher in D. Ford, and also Justin Garrett, I think, coming back really helps as you start playing some more traditional offense-type teams. There was a noticeable difference when those two guys came back late in the game against Mississippi State. Things really started turning around.
Oh, definitely.
But to me, that's what's going to be critical in this game. I think Auburn may still have some issues rushing the ball against LSU's front four. I think LSU's probably going to try to pressure them into winning through the air, which, it'll be interesting to see Nick Marshall now with a little bit more confidence after that late drive, if he can keep it up as he's passing.
I think a good game plan for Auburn might be to come out, play action a lot
I
on
agree.
first downs, or
Yep.
just come out and throw some quick hitting passes and back that defense off of the run game.
Yep.
Use the pass to open up the run.
Yep. LSU's offense seems to be vastly improved this year. Probably a combination of new offensive coordinator Cam Cameron and Zach Mettenberger, the quarterback, feeling a lot more comfortable. Certainly a guy whose passing abilities you have to respect. LSU has that about 3 or 4 running backs that can certainly hurt you. I mean, they got a whole squad of them. The one thing that maybe is a positive, Zach Mettenberger, probably not a guy who's going to hurt you so much with his legs. However, Auburn has let some guys who really shouldn't hurt you with their legs hurt them a little bit this year.
Like the white quarterback from Washington State.
Yeah. So something to watch out for.
I think Mettenberger's scared to run. If you ever watch him during the game, he will take a sack before he'll scramble. So I think that'll help. And against Mississippi State on third down, that seemed to be the problem. They just could not stop the running quarterback.
Right.
They had everything else pretty locked down. This is the game that I've wanted to see from the outset for Auburn. With that stable of running backs, can you stop the run with a 4-2-5? This is the game that I want to see. If they can get in there, smash mouth with LSU, you've got to feel good about your chances if you can keep this game close.
And it's an interesting thing to watch here. Ellis Johnson, Auburn defensive coordinator, kind of taking a little bit of a gamble here by, you would think at the beginning of the season the smart thing to do would be to take Justin Garrett, who's somewhere in the 215 range,
right?
Put him back at the hybrid position and take your guy Robinson Therese out, who's more of a pass situation type guy. But Therese's been playing so well,
he has,
that you really want to get both of those guys on the field. So what he's done is he's taken Casanova McKenzie, who's about 235, 240, out of the weak side linebacker position, and he's putting 215 Justin Garrett into that. So you're losing a little bit of size there, and it's a little bit of a gamble against a team like LSU, but at the same time, you want to try to get your best 11 on the field.
And at the same time, you add speed. And as much as LSU is a power running game, they still do love running the stretch play to the outside. And somebody who can disrupt the blocking scheme is somebody with speed on those edge runs.
So I think that's a key thing to watch during this game is does the Auburn defense stick with that? Do they end up trying to, at some point, get some more size back in at linebacker? I mean, really, just to be perfectly honest, linebacker is the weakest part of Auburn's defense right now.
Which is nice that you only have to throw 2 of them out there.
Yeah. So that to me is a key thing to watch in this one.
Here's my key to the game. This is going to be this will tell you who wins, who loses, and by how much. How well does Auburn do when Louisiana State is inside the red zone?
Yeah.
Because Auburn's defense has been tremendous inside the red zone, which is a testament to the 4-2-5. It bends in between the 20s, but it's very stout inside the 20. Can they hold out a very powerful team like LSU and continue that dominance inside the 20? I think that'll determine the game.
Let's a couple of off-the-field factors here. Thinking back to past Auburn games in Baton Rouge, Auburn has not won there since 1999. That game, of course, was the famous cigar game where Auburn won in Tommy Tuberville's second season. After the game, Tuberville and a bunch of other players, there were a bunch of pictures taken of them smoking cigars on the field there. It's almost like a Billy Goat Curse type moment at this point, David.
I think I would take a box of cigars and burn them before the game.
Yeah, I mean, some kind of effigy needs to take place here. Auburn has really, a lot of the games down there have not even been close. Probably the last interesting one was in 2007. I don't know if you remember this one. That was the year LSU went on to win the national championship with 2 losses. But during the Auburn game, Auburn seemingly had them on the ropes. LSU was driving at the very end. Should have kicked a field goal to tie it. However, Les Miles, in the beginning of the Les Miles that he is today, I think accidentally called a pass to the corner of the end zone. LSU got it. They won the game.
I do remember that one because do you know who that was caught on?
That was Gerard Powers.
That was Gerard Powers, who played a great defensive game and was actually in great position for that pass. He just didn't quite get his head around in time.
Right. So that was a crushing loss. I was there for that game, but really, there's some voodoo going on down there. It's a tough place to win, especially at night.
It's a place you never want to go to if you don't have to.
Yeah, so 6:45 kickoff. Also, some rain supposed to be in the forecast there. I don't know, David. I'm not quite. Let's put it this way. I think a reasonable expectation for this game would, from my perspective, would be, like you said, keep it interesting.
Right.
I don't quite think Auburn is to the point right now to knock off an LSU at home. I think the possibility is there.
Definitely.
It's not totally out of the question, but I don't think it's quite a reasonable expectation. In my mind, you're probably looking at something along the lines of 35-21, somewhere in that area.
I think if you can keep it within 14, be happy with it. But if you can keep it within 3 to 10 in the first 3 quarters, because I think what's going to happen is that stable of running backs LSU has is just going to wear down that defense, and in the fourth quarter, it could kind of get away from you. But if you can keep it close through the first 3, I think you got to be happy.
Best case scenario for Auburn, I think, here is Auburn beats LSU, and then you really need LSU to beat Georgia next week to start getting some respect. But, you know, it would be nice to have that.
You don't think they get the respect just with the win automatically?
I'm not sure that they would. I'm thinking, you know, LSU, the only teams they've played, TCU.
TCU's a big team. I mean, they were ranked very high coming into the year.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think it would be more a narrative of LSU losing than Auburn winning, unless you see LSU beat Georgia next
Now,
week.
it depends on how they play. Now, if Mettenberger throws 6 interceptions or they have 2 or 3 fumbles, you're probably going to say LSU fumbles the game away. But Auburn could come in there. If they find a way to stop the run and Mettenberger is off a little bit, there's going to be no excuses.
Yeah. No, I think it'll be a great game to watch. I think it shouldn't be a blowout. Let's put it that way.
Nick Marshall needs to be on point for Auburn to play well.
Yeah, so that would be an interesting one to watch. Let's run through a couple of the other SEC matchups here. Vandy traveling up to Gillette Stadium, home of the Patriots, to play UMass.
The only question is why.
Why are you traveling, Vandy? You were an SEC team.
Did you see the point spread on this?
No, I have not.
The point spread is 31.5 points.
Okay.
I'm taking UMass on the points.
I put this one on the pick'em. Just I'm not sure what I was thinking really.
That's fine. It's Vandy.
Yeah, I mean there's a chance. You never know with Vandy.
There's not a chance. Have you seen the teams UMass has played?
Yeah, they've played some pretty terrible competition, but you never know. But yeah, Vandy.
Right.
Vandy wins here. Georgia plays North Texas in a warm up for LSU the following week. Texas A&M gets SMU. Probably not any issues there. Mississippi State playing Troy. You see any possibility for an upset there?
Oh, definitely, yeah. Troy's not a bad team, and they have had issues, or Mississippi State has had issues in the past with Troy. So if we get news Saturday afternoon late Saturday evening that Troy has upset Mississippi State, I will not be surprised.
Nah, I don't think it's going to happen, but I wouldn't be surprised. Missouri and Indiana, a little bit more intriguing than it seems.
I think so. Both of them are pretty bad. So I don't
Indiana's
think
better than usual.
I don't know. They only won by like 7 against Indiana State.
Yeah, but better
Isn't that
than
right?
usual.
Okay, all right. You are correct.
Missouri's still not a good team, but certainly want to pay attention to 2 games of more interest this week. And admittedly, the slate of college football games overall this weekend is pretty terrible.
Well, to put it on a standard college game day is going to be in North Dakota State.
Yeah, I mean, they just said, to heck with it. We're just going to go somewhere weird this
Right.
week. Arkansas and Rutgers. This one really intrigues me, David.
I think it's an interesting matchup. Neither team has really played a whole lot of talent, so you don't know a whole lot about them. I mean, Rutgers has played at Fresno State, Norfolk State, and Eastern Michigan.
So nobody, basically.
So, yeah, they lost to Fresno
but
and beat
Arkansas
the other 2.
hasn't played anybody yet either.
That's right. Arkansas has played Louisiana Lafayette, Samford, which they struggled with, and Southern Miss, who's terrible.
Yeah. Arkansas, the Brett Belemers are seemingly riding high at this point at 3-0. Could they be brought down to a shattering crash this weekend?
They definitely could, and it's at Rutgers. The possibilities all there, but you know that I'm a Belemer, and so
you like Justin Bieber. Just admit it.
Belemer.
Oh.
So I think Arkansas can take a win out of here and start the season 4-0. And the biggest reason I'm saying that is because I think I predicted them to be 4-0 to start the season.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to lose this game. I think it'll be a close one. I certainly don't think they're going to win by any type of margin. In fact, last year when the 2 teams played, Rutgers won 35-26. So this year, I think
new coaching staff, new personnel.
Yeah, I think with a new coach, you probably win this one, but certainly a close one, and certainly one to watch out for.
I've got to go back to a quote from Bill Snyder when he started out coaching at Kansas State. He said, I've got to get these guys expecting to win. I got to get them used to winning. They have no idea what that's like. So he scheduled all these powder puffs for a couple years just to get them used to what a win was like. I think winning's contagious. I mean, they're 3-0. Even if they're not playing anybody, you kind of get in the habit of knowing what a win's like.
I can agree with that. Another team, 2 teams really that need some exposure to the disease of winning. Tennessee and Florida. Certainly not the game that this once was. Hasn't been for quite some time. Tennessee just got destroyed by Oregon.
Which,
no
everybody kind of saw that. Yeah.
Florida got the week off to recuperate from that loss to Miami where Jeff Driscoll just, looked like a sock puppet, basically. Just couldn't get anything done. Unfortunately, a new quarterback has not magically materialized in Gainesville.
Once again, I think they've got him. They're just redshirting him.
Yeah. I don't know. This one, Tennessee's looked better. Let's keep in mind that
I really don't think so. If you go back and look at that Miami game, Florida dominated every statistic except for turnovers and the point on the scoreboard. They moved the ball on offense. They had pretty good defense.
I agree
except
with
for
that.
a couple big plays. Florida's not a terrible team. They just have key issues that they can't seem to get past.
Right. No, I'm saying Tennessee is better than Tennessee has been.
Okay, I agree with you on that.
I don't think Tennessee is a better team than Florida right now. Tennessee, but if you remember that Western Kentucky game, I think that Western Kentucky game could have been a real challenge had Western Kentucky's offense not completely self-destructed.
Right. It was absolutely awful.
So really, this one's at Florida. I don't think Florida has too much trouble here, but if Butch Jones at Tennessee is looking to get a signature win to start off his time here, this would be probably the one to do it.
Oh, definitely. And if Florida starts out slow and, let's say, in the first 3 possessions has 2 turnovers, you can see that crowd just turning on that team, and I think it could get ugly. Tennessee could win that game, but if I've got to guess, a week off, Muschamp might have killed 3 of the players in that week off.
It's very possible.
So I think Florida comes out highly motivated in front of their home crowd.
I think so too. So I don't think Florida has too much trouble there. You want to take a quick break?
Yeah,
let's do that. Let's take a quick break and let's talk about a couple of the Big Ten games on the other side because there's some interesting stuff to look at there.
All
definitely.
Right, we will do it.
All right, we'll be right back on the other side of Outputting Our Coverage. Welcome back into into Outputting Our Coverage. As I mentioned earlier on the show, the Pick 10 this week, somewhat of a challenge. There's some tough games on there. There's a couple of them that I will admit, David, I waffled.
I will tell you that I have been told by at least 5 people that these are the toughest picks that they've had so far.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough week. There's a lot of games that could really go either way, and that's kind of what you get, surprisingly, I guess, in a weekend. There's not a lot of top-tier matchups, but the lower-tier matchups are sometimes harder to decide.
Yeah, so, let's take the first one that I really waffled on, Boise State at Fresno State.
Yeah.
Now, we already talked about Fresno State a little bit.
Fresno State actually favored in this one,
right?
By 4.
Because they're at home, it's
I mean,
barely more than home field advantage. They beat Rutgers close, and then Cal Poly, which I guess congratulations for that.
Neat.
Boise State is at 2-1. They lost their first game to Washington, and then have played Tennessee Martin and Air Force.
Certainly, Boise State not the team that they once were. Again, though, you talk about teams that know how to win. Boise State is one of those.
They are.
Fresno State kind of took a step back the past couple of years after, with their longtime head coach, Pat Hill. He's gone
Greatest
now.
Mustaches in all of history.
Yeah, he's gone. They got a new guy. I really have no idea on this one, David. I picked Boise State probably just because it felt good, but I don't know.
I kind of did the same thing. I went with what I knew in Boise State. Fresno State, though, they always have that game or 2 games a year where they should not win. You just never expect them going in,
right?
And they just pull it right out from under you. So.
Yeah, so I'm really not sure on that one. It's kind of a toss-up to me. I may change my mind a few more times before Saturday arrives.
And you can. They lock in around...
Oh, I'm sorry, that game's Friday.
That's right. They lock in tomorrow. We actually have a game...
I got to leave right now.
We have a game that has already started.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that one real quick. We have Clemson right now, number 3 in the country, playing at North Carolina State.
Okay.
The 2-0 North Carolina State, who has beaten these impressive teams of Louisiana Tech and Richmond.
Well, do you know how much they beat Richmond by?
How much?
23-21. So that's a little bit of a problem.
But this is the same
opinion.
North Carolina State who only won 4 or 5 games last year, but somehow figured out a way to beat the previously unbeaten Florida State.
That's true. They're giant killers.
They are giant killers.
Right now, what are we still tied up 0-0? Just started.
Yeah, 1 minute and 9 seconds in.
Okay, so I don't know. Clemson will Clemson at some point this year. Probably not tonight. I don't think it's going to be tonight.
I don't either. Clemson's favored by 14.5. I'm taking the points. I think they run all over North Carolina State.
Yeah, I think so too. Clemson's real talented. Chad Morris is going to make a lot of money as a head coach somewhere next year.
And
not sure where he
Tosh
is,
Boyd is going to make a lot of money as an NFL quarterback next year.
Yeah.
Probably with Cleveland, who's
Probably.
really gunning for a quarterback.
Probably. All right, let's talk about this next one that was just also very tough for me. West Virginia and Maryland.
Yeah, I had no idea where to go. I think I ended up just going with the home team. Although Maryland has only beaten Florida International, Old Dominion, and at UConn.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Not a great schedule. West Virginia, you have wins against William and Mary and Georgia State.
So equally unimpressive.
And a loss against Oklahoma.
Yeah, really. West Virginia had some quarterback struggles against Oklahoma.
They did.
Changed their starter. Got a new guy now. Maryland has struggled mightily against the pass this year. They've allowed a ton of yards. And for that reason, I'm going to take West Virginia.
Okay, and that's a very sensible pick. I went Maryland because they were a home team.
Yeah.
And also, I need wins.
Okay.
So I think I went with a lot of favorites this week.
Okay, well, that seems reasonable to me. Let's move on to this next one here. Michigan State and Notre Dame.
I just got done saying that I took a lot of favorites and home teams, and this is the one where I didn't.
Yeah.
I don't believe in Notre Dame at all. I mean, they should have lost that game to Purdue. Did you see that?
Yeah, well, typically they always almost lose their game to Purdue. That's not anything new.
I know, and Michigan State really has struggled this year. I mean, they played Western Michigan, South Florida, and Youngstown State, and they almost lost to South Florida. A South Florida team, by the way, who was beat in the first week handily by a Division II team.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much confidence I should put in the Spartans, but I think they'll beat Notre Dame.
Michigan State also has a new quarterback now who is kind of soft. Remember last year with Andrew Maxwell? I mean, it was lauglaugably bad at quarterback.
They could not throw a forward pass.
I mean, it was almost worse than Auburn's offense last year, which is pretty tough to do.
Yeah.
Almost. I mean, first.
You were a believer in this Michigan State Spartans defense, right?
I was a
Last
believer
year?
in the defense, but eventually, the offense got so bad that it's like a girl with the most beautiful backside in the world. That, if she has 3 teeth, you still can't go for that.
I don't know about 3 teeth. They had Le'Veon Bell, who rushed for like 160 yards a game. They just could not throw a forward pass. Everybody knew they were going to run.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm thinking Notre Dame in this one.
Okay. Home team favored by about 7.5.
Home team, they know how to squeak out wins. Michigan State, the quarterback has gotten some yards, more yards than they're used to, but hadn't been against great competition. Notre Dame's been pretty stout against the pass so far, so that's, I don't know. I feel pretty not confident about it, but I'm going to take Notre Dame.
All right, well, we differ on that one. How about Arizona State at Stanford?
No question for me, Stanford.
I
Arizona
also
State
Stanford.
shouldn't even beat Wisconsin. I don't understand why a lot of people think this is the best game this week.
I don't either.
7.5 points. Stanford's definitely going to win by more than that.
And at home as well.
Absolutely no question. They're going to win.
You want to talk about a stout defense.
Yeah.
That's it right
Yeah,
there.
that's an easy pick to me.
All right, and to me, the most fascinating game of the week.
Yeah, this one is so hard, David.
Kansas State at Texas.
I don't even know where to start on this.
All right, first off, Kansas State lost their home opener to North Dakota State.
Which is where game day is this week.
Which
So they
is
can't be
where game
terrible.
day-
They're a really good Division II team.
They are an excellent Division II
Yeah.
team. Then they rattled off wins against L.A. Lafayette and Massachusetts.
Okay.
And then
So-
Texas has they won their first game against New Mexico State, the perennial powerhouse, and they lost at BYU by a lot, and then they also lost at home against Ole Miss by
So
a
really,
lot.
the level of achievement for both teams at this point pretty darn equal.
Yeah, and they both have been disappointments to their home crowd.
Texas a 5.5-point favorite. To me, it comes down to this: you got Bill Snyder, who's a guy who knows how to win,
Definitely.
and then on the other side, you got Texas, who has much better players.
Right.
In a vacuum, which one of those things wins out?
Bill Snyder, knowing how to win.
See, I'm saying better players.
See, I think if it was better players, then you would have beaten BYU. I think Texas this year, this is a weird 1 in a million year. I think Texas cannot right the wagon on this one. I think they just fall off the deep
But
end.
what if I told you this, David? What if I told you that Kansas State was rushing for an average of about 25 yards a game? Would that change your mind?
No.
Really, that still doesn't.
No, you could tell me that they're also only passing for 17 yards a game, and I would say that they are still going to beat Texas because I think Texas could give up 300 yards rushing with you and I at offensive linemen.
Okay, well, I don't know. This is one I may waffle back and forth on again. Right now, I'm thinking Texas.
Okay. I think Kansas.
I don't know, David.
Let me preface this by saying I think Kansas State is terrible.
Yeah.
At the same time, I think they're going to beat Texas.
Okay. So that doesn't mean much, I guess, but, not your statement. I'm just saying beating Texas
Right.
doesn't mean much for them. I just saw this story. I thought it was interesting. Talking about rivalries here, Michigan and Michigan State, not the biggest rivalry. I mean, Michigan and Ohio State, more of a real rivalry. But apparently last week, one of the skywriting planes over East Lansing at the Michigan State Stadium wrote "Go Blue"
Nice.
with the airplane. Everybody was wondering who did it. Overzealous fan, alumni group, message board. Turns out it was the Michigan Athletic Department. that paid
What are
for
you
it.
thinking, Michigan? Why would you go do that?
This woman who owns the skywriting plane said the Wolverines Athletic Department hired her business to put Michigan slogans into the air above Ann Arbor and then East Lansing on Saturday. Michigan Athletic Department spokesman acknowledged his department paid for Saturday's skywriting, but said no specific locations were targeted, David.
Oh, come on. That's like the team that constantly beats its quote-unquote rival for 12 straight years and still desecrates their mascot every year before the game.
Yeah.
It's just everybody knows those jerk people and jerk teams. I guess that's just...
It's just Michigan, I guess.
I guess.
Anyway, that's all the time we got here on Outputting Our Coverage this week. Enjoy the games as much as you can this weekend. I know they're not the most spectacular, but still some intriguing things to look out for. Certainly I'll be watching that Auburn-LSU game, hoping for the best. We'll see what happens.
all you can do.
But regardless, we will be back next week on Outputting Our Coverage. Till then, have a great week. We'll see you then.